Hi and welcome to another video from the Intelligent Auto channel. It's been a while, but I've been busy, sorry. Today I've got a 2011 Volkswagen Caddy. It's a 1.6 and it's got the CAYD engine in it. The vehicle originally was recovered into me some weeks ago as a non-start, non-crank. The reason it was non-start, non-crank was the turbo had failed and it had filled one cylinder with oil, so it was actually hydro-locked. I've got the old turbo there. I'll show you the extent of the damage. So here's the old turbo. What's happened was the shaft had snapped on it. I'm just going to put these grips on just to show you. So I can actually move the shaft in and out. It was still turning, as you can see, but it's got a snapped shaft. As you can see, the amount of oil that's come out of the exhaust outlet is pretty spectacular, should we say. Also as well, there's quite a bit of oil in the manifold itself. You can see that on camera. So obviously it's quite oily in there, and also there was oil in the compressor side as well. To look at, the compressor wheel kind of looked all right. There's a little bit of play in it, but there's also a bit of end float in that end. I'll show you better with the grips. End float in there as well. Get it on camera anyway. There's end float in there as well. So turbo's basically shot to shit. So this engine ended up had a bent rod as well. It was running with a misfire on cylinder 3, so the head's been off it. And the it had a rod in, a set of rings on that cylinder. It had a set of valve guides as well, because there's a bit of wear in the valve guides as well. But the reason for today's video is to basically explain the reason or the cause of the original turbo failure, which I've uncovered once I've replaced this turbo. So I'm going to put the camera onto the engine on the van and talk you through that one. So here we are, that's the new turbo. That's the exhaust outlet side of the turbo. I'm zoomed in on there. The reason I'm zoomed in on the exhaust outlet is I fitted the turbo on the van, and I started it up before I put the exhaust on, just to check for oil leaks and what have you before I basically put the exhaust back on. But what I found was, well, you'll see, I'll start the van up and you'll see what I found. So here it goes. So if you look at about the 7 o'clock position there on that turbo, you'll see a little black dot. What that little black dot is actually engine oil. So there's engine oil actually passing from the core of the turbo into round the back of the turbine wheel and making its way out through the exhaust exit of the turbo, which basically shouldn't be happening. As the engine warms through, it starts to get worse. Well, I had the engine running just to run it up, and I noticed drips of oil on the floor, which led me to this. just give it a rev, it'll speed it up a bit. I think you should be able to see the oil starting to creep out there now. So basically the longer it runs, more oil starts creeping out of here. I'll knock this off now. Now if we look at the compressor side of the turbo, it's pretty much bone dry, so I'm just going to take it around there now. So that's the compressor outlet there, a little bit oil but not as much as what's on the turbine side. So you can see the oil starting to creep out there now, starting to puddle up on the outlet. I've got a better video of this using the mobile phone sort of in front of the turbine wheel itself, which I'll include in this video. I'm going to knock it off now. So as you can see, the turbo is passing oil, which it shouldn't do. I've got both sides of the turbo disconnected, so it's venting to the atmosphere on both sides, so the pressure in the turbine housing and the pressure in the compressor housing are equal, so that oil should be staying within the core of the turbo. So it begs the question, why? So is this the reason for the original turbo failure? So thinking about it, what can cause that turbo to pass oil? Now, it wasn't a cheap reman turbo, it was actually a new Garrett unit which I fitted, so you'd expect it to be 100% absolutely work first time. So it got me to thinking, so started thinking of different scenarios of where this oil could be coming from. Could it be coming out the engine? Could it be coming out of the turbo itself? I'm pretty sure it's coming out the core of the turbo, because it is, as soon as you start it up, you can start seeing the oil coming around the back of the turbine wheel. As you'll see on the mobile phone footage that I've inserted into this video, you can see the oil sort of like creeping around the back of the turbine wheel. So I think it's coming from the core of the turbo, but why? Obviously the turbo is fed by oil, fed by the oil pump under pressure, but that oil has got to also escape the turbo as well and go back to the crankcase. So that was my next port of call, the crankcase. So I'm just going to put the video back on, I'm going to put the camera back on the engine and just run the engine again and just give you a quick look at something. So here we are, back in the engine bay. I'm going to start this up again. So the engine's running. Now if I remove the dipstick, and get you closer in there. As you can see, there's oil bubbling up in the dipstick. So basically, the engine is pushing oil out the dipstick. Now, compressions are good, so I know it hasn't got an issue with an excessive amount of blowback. So which leads me to look at why am I getting an excessive amount of back pressure in the dipstick. So the only thing I can put it down to, just wiping the oil off the front of this van. The only thing I can put it down to, and bearing in mind the breather is disconnected. So we've obviously got an issue with breather on this engine. Now the breather is this pipe here, which would normally connect onto the intake air pipe to the turbo. So what I'm going to do is a little test, and this is the point of this video, a little test on the breather with a thing called an anemometer. So I'm just going to set it up now. So this is the tool. As you can see, it's got just a handset. As you can see, it's got a little wire in there, and it works in exactly the same way as an airflow meter. That's a hot wire. So as air passes past it, the resistance changes in the wire, which then changes the voltage, the signal voltage, back to the handset, and it converts that signal voltage into a measurement of airflow. So I'm just going to switch it on now. What's it there? It's called TSI airflow. So once again, I'm going to start the engine, and I'm going to place the anemometer in front of the breather and measure the amount of air coming through the breather. So dipstick's back in. Let me get this in shot. So I'm holding that in front of the breather. So at idle, I'm getting around about 2.5, it's going up a bit, 3. Measured in meters per second, actually cubic meters per second. So in the high 2s, not quite 3. So that's with the breather system vented to atmosphere. The dipstick is in the tube. I'm getting just under between 2.5 and 3 meters per second of air coming out that tube. Now I've got another VAG vehicle here with a similar engine. It's not the same engine, but I need something to compare this to see. I don't know how much air should come out of a breather on this engine with a block this size. Now, if that breather is restricted in any way, the oil that's being fed to the turbocharger then can't return back to the sump because of excess pressure. The oil return to the sump's not under pressure. So the pressure's building up in the crankcase, that oil can't return. So has this been the original cause of failure of this turbo, where the oil has just basically boiled inside of the turbo and caused the shaft to snap? So I need to compare this against something. So I've got another Volkswagen diesel behind me here, where I've got the breather disconnected on that. I'm just going to start that up, and I'm going to basically compare the reading on this engine to the reading on that engine. It's the same size block. It's a 2 litre, but it's got the same size block, and see what the airflow is coming through the breather on that engine. So I've got this engine running and ready. I'm quickly going to do the same test. So put the anemometer in front of the breather. Straight away, it's a cold engine. I've got a higher rate of breathing. I've got 4.5 meters a second coming out of there. So I think that kind of proves to me that the engine on the Caddy is not breathing so well, which is causing the build-up of pressure inside the crankcase, which is then causing the oil to spew itself out the turbo. So I'm going to take the rotor cover off and have a look at the breather. It's gone up again. It's warming up, it's improving. So here we go. I've fitted a brand new rotor cover to this because I couldn't trust this breather system, and there's no way of dismantling it. It's all kind of integral with the rotor cover, so I opted to go just with a new rotor cover. So I've got the engine running now, as you can hear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the anemometer back on the breather. As you can see now, it's over 3 already. As I say, it was kind of between 2.5 and 2.7 before. So definitely an improvement. Now we have the acid test, which is move you a bit closer, the dipstick. I'm going to pull the dipstick out and we'll see if any oil comes out that dipstick now. As you can see, there's just oil vapour coming out there now, where before there was actually liquid oil coming out of there. So proving that the sump pressure has got to be much lower because of better breathability. So quite happy with that. Put the dipstick back in, and last but not least, we'll have a look at the actual turbocharger itself, which was the original concern. Well, this engine's now been running for a good few minutes, and as you can see, the casting on the outlet of the turbo, there's no oil, or there's not the same amount of oil. There's a bit of residual oil there, but I think that was from when when it was pushing oil through, but before that would have been running out there by now. So proving the fact that the breather in the rocker box has more than likely been the cause of the failure of the original turbo. As I say, I'm happy with that, so I'm now happy to put this exhaust back on and put this van back together and give it back to its owner. So that's the end of that video there. I thought I would video that just to put a different slant on how to check a breather using this thing here. This one here is quite a fancy one, a few hundred quid's worth, but you can buy anemometers for under 30 quid, ones with a fan on, which test wind speed and what have you like that, but I don't know how accurate they are. This is basically an airflow meter on the end of a wand. But I'd never kind of thought about using this tool for checking breathers, but as I say, if you've got the tools in your toolbox, use them. I think you've got to think out of the box these days. You've got to think like an engineer. There's a test for everything. There's a way to test everything, and that's just proven that there's a way to test a breather system. Obviously, we had the visual test of the oil coming out the dipstick, but what was the cause of that? We tested the airflow coming out the breather with the anemometer. It was about 2.5 meters a second with the old rotor cover on. With the new rotor cover on, it went up to 3.2 meters per second, proving that there must be a restriction within that rotor cover which was causing the build-up of crankcase pressure, which in turn was causing the turbo not to return its oil and the oil to be pushed past the rings, what they call piston rings on the turbo shaft, and be pushed past the turbine wheel and out of the turbine housing. I hope you take something from this. As I say, I like to put a bit of a slant on things, and I think that's a bit of a different test. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to get down in the comments box. Leave your comments, your thoughts on the video, your thoughts on the process. You know, if somebody's got an alternative way of testing, great, I want to hear it. I'm sharing my testing methods, you share your testing methods back with me. But yeah, get down in the comments box, hit the subscription button if you haven't already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. I'll put a link down into my Facebook pages at the bottom. Get onto Facebook, like the Facebook page, and yeah, I'll see you next time.